From Creamer Media in Johannesburg, this is the Real Economy Report. The invitation from China for South Africa to join the powerful Brics bloc in December has been described by the South African government as the best Christmas gift ever. But the question remains if South Africa will be able to fully leverage the benefits that come with being associated to such a dynamic economic grouping. Loni Prinsloo reports.
Weber Wenzel partner Peter Leon believes that South Africa is the only game in town to partner with the BRIC bloc, if one considers its status in Africa and the wealth of minerals that it sits on.
I think South Africa was invited by China to join the BRICS. I mean, if you look at South Africa's GDP in relation to a country like Turkey, for example, our GDP is 357 billion, Turkey's is double that. So on any test, and you look at things like population, our population is 50 million, Nigeria's 130 million, Brazil's 170 million. So I mean, in terms of population, we weren't really a candidate. But where we were a candidate, and we are of a lot of interest to China and the other BRIC members, is we first of all are sitting on the world's biggest set of mineral resources, $2.5 trillion of reserves in mineral resources. And secondly, if you look at South Africa in the context of Africa, it has the most developed infrastructure, the deepest capital markets, so it's a gateway into Africa. And so so you're going to look at resources and you're going to look at opportunities in Africa. Then if you're going to look at a country, it must be South Africa's the only game in town. But if you look at it in terms of GDP per capita or GDP overall, then obviously we're, in relation to other BRIC countries and other potential members of BRICS, we're a minnow.
Meanwhile, Frontier Advisory CEO Martin Davies says that the S in BRICS should not just be representative of South Africa, but also of the bigger sub-Saharan African region.
Well, increasingly the S in BRICS must not just stand for South Africa, but for SADC. SADC as a regional market is 260 million people, a quarter of a billion. We're much bigger than Russia, we're bigger than Brazil, we're even bigger than other candidate members like Indonesia. So I think the key challenge for us is for us to be taken perhaps something more seriously by the economic forecasting community, by global capital perhaps, is to integrate our own economic hinterland, the SADC neighborhood, if you will. And I think then the arguments about whether we deserve to be included in a BRIC or not will fall away. And I think that just will not just provide opportunity for South African companies, but increasingly the other BRIC countries will regardless, hopefully rightfully so, as the springboard, as a market access point that actually we are into our own region.
But the question remains, how can South Africa business fully leverage the economic opportunities presented by this grouping? The South African Institute for International Affairs CEO Elizabeth Sideropoulos shares some insights.
I think one of the biggest challenges really is some of the structural constraints that we face in our economy in terms of being able to attract investment in certain sectors here, in terms of our being able to be competitive and have high productivity, which is all about competitiveness, where we find the key challenges, particularly vis-a-vis China. And these are some of the things that we have to change within South Africa, both at a government level and then in terms of how our business model is operating. But clearly the other important aspect is really we need to develop a concept of South Africa Inc., where government and business are working closely together in meeting the objectives that the government itself has set about, which is reducing unemployment, and doing that in a way that actually positions us globally. Competition these days is not about competition within the country, it's about how you position yourself globally and whether you're competitive globally. And I think that's the benchmark we have to consider.
Other news making headlines this week includes an announcement that education and small business is key to South Africa's competitiveness. Energy efficiency could be seen as another fuel to ensure reliable supply. And Minister Davies says the Doha round of negotiations are unlikely to be concluded this year. Poor education and skills levels are serious impediments to job creation in South Africa, which aims to create 5 million jobs over 10 years, says Econometrics chief economist Azar Jameen.
The biggest challenge that the South African economy is currently facing is the high rate of unemployment, but more importantly, the very low absorption ratio. In other words, the fact that so few of the people who are capable of working are actually working either in the formal or the informal sectors. The new growth path deliberately aims to try and shift the direction of economic activity away from knowledge-intensive, capital-intensive activities to more labor-intensive activities in mining, agriculture and manufacturing.
Energy efficiency could be the immediate solution to higher energy demand, while renewable energy sources are being considered for long-term energy sustainability. Energy experts attending the recent Power and Electricity World Africa Conference in Johannesburg have argued.
The plan covers electricity, energy and capacity requirements up until 2030. And you see that the plan has incorporated within it significant amount of renewables in the form of wind, concentrated solar, photovoltaic, as well as baseload options like nuclear and coal as well. So that's where the government of South Africa would like to take the electricity capacity into the future. There's obviously a clear signal and message to move towards cleaner coal options, to move towards renewables, and then to address climate change in a big way through nuclear power as well.
While the World Trade Organization continues to push for the conclusion of the Doha Development Round of negotiations in 2011, South African Trade and Industry Minister Rob Davies doesn't think this is likely to happen.
And then I think we're going to have to be asking ourselves some very, very profound questions about what about the Doha round? Is it now dead? I mean, I think that we have other options. Many of us have other options. It doesn't seem to me that it's also impossible that some of the issues that are of importance to the least developed countries and to the other weaker developing countries, that these matters can't also be dealt with in other ways. I think the political case for a deal to benefit the cotton farmers is overwhelming. We've been asking and demanding an early harvest on that.
That's Creamer Media's Real Economy Report. Join us again next week for more news and insight into South Africa's real economy.
For 30 years, Creamer Media's engineering news has delivered unmatched insight into South Africa's real economy. Subscribe now and go to engineeringnews.co.za for the real economy in real time. Engineering news, not just for engineers.